Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Isolation Station. This is the Antisocial Distancing podcast, and today is day. I've seen all 23 MCU movies at least 3 times, and I still cry at Endgame of the new normal. And today we are joined by an American, Lauren Ellison of G9. Who does hold an American passport. She hasn't shown it to me, but she has told me that it exists. Lauren, how are you doing?
Very good.
Okay, and so it's been a long time since the mid-March when we were told no more school, everyone celebrate. What have you been doing since then? Have you been surviving?
I have been, barely.
And what have you been doing to occupy your time since then?
Should I say watching Hamilton? Would that fit the mood?
It would. I mean, it would fit the sort of the topic of today. But I mean, considering Hamilton's only been out for a month.
Before that, I was dead.
Okay.
And then once Hamilton came back,
you came back from beyond the grave and.
I'm here now.
Hamilton is so important in your life. It revived you from death.
Yes.
All right. So I mean, if anyone wants to give it a try, there could be no better review than that.
So the graveyard.
Yeah, just play it on a big screen in a graveyard. It's fine.
And the Michael Jackson music video will just.
Yeah. Best not to talk about Michael Jackson. But anyway, moving swiftly on. I mean, we've sort of jumped the gun a bit, but today we're going to talk about Hamilton.
Yes.
So it's been out for about a month. I mean, Lauren definitely knows specifically how long, because that was the time that she came back from the dead. And so it's a movie on Disney Plus, which is recorded from a musical, which is probably one of the world's right now. I mean, definitely the most famous musical, probably the most popular musical. Tickets to Hamilton.
Next to Grease 2.
Next to Grease 2, absolutely. Also, don't forget Little Shop of Horrors. They're the other two that are the big ones. But so tickets even now, people are waiting for. Sort of 2 to 3 years to get a ticket to see Hamilton. There's a waiting list. No, when I went back to England in December, I decided why not try and get a ticket, and it was going to cost me 5 times the asking price. And I mean, I can tell you right now, Lauren, I'm not that rich.
Oh, really?
Surprise, surprise, surprise. I've not got the wealth of Elon Musk.
Well,
or the insane political opinions. So, going back to talking about Hamilton, this is going to be a really hard-hitting interview. So the first difficult question that I want to ask you is, Lauren, how did you find out about Hamilton?
I was surrounded by people who wouldn't stop singing it.
Okay. Would one of those people have been me?
Yes.
You're right. And so was the first time that you sort of, apart from, people around you, non-professionals, shall we say, singing the music of Hamilton, was there a time that you sort of, how can I put this nicely? You saw it or listened to it, sung by paid actors?
I did. I listened to a few songs, but that's as far as I knew. I knew 3, and I thought I knew the whole musical.
And then?
And then it came out on Disney Plus.
Right, and then you watched it. The end of story.
And then I realized it was actually 2 hours long.
Right. So, I mean, I actually had a similar experience. I mean, I didn't have the people around me singing, because I mean
You were the one singing.
I was the one singing it, so it would have been a bit strange. It would have been a bit like I don't know if you've heard those stories of people that have an accident and hit their head and they wake up speaking a different language.
Yeah, I've heard of those.
I mean, it might have been that sort of situation that I hit my head and woke up and instantly sung every song of Hamilton. But strangely, that didn't happen. I don't know specifically what. I remember it was on YouTube, and I think there was a video of Lin-Manuel Miranda, who is the writer and star of Hamilton. I mean, just as an aside, he must have sort of the easiest job. So he decides, I'm going to write a musical based on a book that I wrote, right? And then I'm going to star in it. I'm going to
make myself the one everyone falls in love with.
Right.
In the musical.
Yeah, I'm gonna call myself really attractive. I'm gonna be the star.
Make everyone obsessed with my eyes.
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, maybe we should come up with something like that. The Mick the Musical, where the main characters are an English teacher and a G9 student called Lauren. And then we star in it ourselves.
Entertaining.
No, it wouldn't be.
This is that musical.
Yes. We just need to write the songs. So as I said, I had a similar experience as you. I heard a few songs from Hamilton, mainly from the first half of Hamilton, and thought, I know the story. This is the story of Hamilton. Oh, there's a cat. Now I know the story of Hamilton, and sort of watching it for the first time, or should I say, listening to the soundtrack for the first time, and finding out there was, over 2 hours. Thank you for moving the cat. Finding that there was over 2 hours of these songs, and most of them are, bangers. It was a really wide, eye-opening moment for me to realise that this incredible musical, and lots of musicals, you listen to 3 or 4 songs and you think these songs are great, and then you see the musical and those are sort of the 4 best songs. Whereas I think in Hamilton, I think you talk to 10 people and everyone will have a different favourite song, and all of them are songs that people love.
Yeah.
Right.
I think one thing I found different about Hamilton than other musicals is, especially in the beginning, I would get chills, but that's, normal, but I'll just get emotional on songs that aren't emotional. But because it was just so good.
Yeah, a good song.
They would harmonize the word work and I would start crying.
Absolutely. So, by the way, for those of you who don't know, currently we are actually we're not, it's a green screen, but we are in the theatre where Hamilton is presented.
If we were actually in the theatre, that would be very non-social distancing of us.
Well, exactly, it would be very naughty. So, we're not naughty.
Scott would not approve.
No, and we would travel to the US, so... Okay, so we've talked a little bit about how we sort of first found out about Hamilton and you getting chills from the word work. So, you've seen it a couple of times now since it came out. What were your first impressions when it was the first time that you saw it?
I was expecting it to be good because there was a lot of hype, but I was blown away.
Okay, Boomer.
Completely, huh?
Okay, Boomer. I agree with you. So, strangely enough, I had seen a like would you call it a bootleg version? Like I'd seen a little bit of the sort of the recording that somebody took that shouldn't really have taken, and it was like I thought that I knew the play. I thought that I understood the musical, but really seeing this version is so much more and so much sort of. I mean, really, yeah, I agree with you. It blows you away the sort of the details that that are in it, right? So we'll talk a little. I think talk a little bit more about King George, but in one of the songs, a character gets so angry that they like a bit of spit comes out of their mouth.
Oh, just a little bit?
Well, quite a lot of spit comes out of their mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of obviously a very wide shot from somebody recording from a camera doesn't give you that detail, and it really, I mean, it's disgusting, but it really sort of makes you realize just that sort of tiny moment of someone spitting when singing. Really, in that moment, it sort of tells you all about their character. And sort of that moment, and then there's some moments at the end of the play, and we're not going to spoil it. There are some moments at the end of the play where really the sort of you wouldn't be able to even get it if you were at the theatre. I think there are some really small moments between the characters that really, this being a film and not just a recorded theatre production, it really helps you to sort of understand everything. And really, I think it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. The Disney Plus version is better than the bootleg.
I mean, yes. I mean,
one thing about in the bootleg, King George looks directly into the camera at one point.
I honestly didn't notice that.
You won't feel spit on with the bootleg.
Pardon?
You won't feel spit on while you're watching.
No, that's true. So we talked about him a little bit more, but so I'm assuming that your favourite character in it would be King George.
Mm-hmm.
And why would you say that a character that, I mean, really, if we're looking at the characters in the play, he's sort of the main character that appears in it the least. Why would you say that he is your favourite character?
Well, I think he's a lot of people's favorites because like you just said, he's not on there the whole time, but when he is, what's the term?
Like he steals the show.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yes, he steals the show. And anytime he's on, that's when everyone laughs the most, I think.
I would agree. I think also, so one of the things that's great about Hamilton is sort of how relevant it is to sort of our lives now. So it's a musical about some white people in the 1800s. But really, for us, it's relevant to some white people in the 2000s. Or the 2010s, I guess. We're sort of 2020s, whatever. So looking at King George, what he really sort of shows is a very, like, the sort of toxic sort of ex-boyfriend sort of character. And like all of his songs are like very petty and very sort of, I mean, spoiler alert, America becomes independent. So he doesn't stay the king, but he's the petty ex that sort of doesn't want America to go and
become its own country.
Well, exactly, become great. So I would agree. I would say that King George is definitely one of the characters that you sort of look at and you really love. But I think there are so many characters that really from the beginning when you see them, when they enter the play, until when they leave, you really get a very different sense of the character. And one of the things is, because I had listened to the soundtrack before, not George Washington, Thomas Jefferson had always, for me, been sort of the villain, right? He's the villain of the second half. Where when you watch the Disney Plus version, the first time he comes on, everyone in the crowd is going mental and they're cheering.
They love him.
They love him, right? And I don't think at the end you'd have asked him, "Do you still love George Washington?" I don't think anyone would say, "Oh yeah, he's a great guy." Sorry, Thomas Jefferson.
Mm-hmm.
You would
because
say,
when you listen to the soundtrack, you can't see his beautiful purple outfit.
No, that's very true. But also, not being from America, I don't have the grand impression of those sort of characters, where those are characters that everyone has heard of since the time they were children. They talk George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, all of these people, they're sort of American heroes. And one of the things that I think is really interesting, especially now, and sort of the sort of social context of now, is that people look at sort of the heroes in maybe a slightly different way. So people are looking at Thomas Jefferson in a slightly different way. And also, even in the play, he is sort of, not all of his bad aspects are brought up as much. So obviously, one of the things about Hamilton that people have criticized is people don't really talk about the fact that everyone was a big fan of the old slaves. I think there's only sort of 3 or 4 moments where slaves are really outwardly mentioned.
Where they say the word slave.
Well, exactly.
There are no slaves in the musical.
Pardon?
There are no slaves in the musical.
Well, no, and exactly that. There are no slaves in the musical, and there are only a few times when slavery is even mentioned. So it's not perfect in that regard for making you sort of look at heroes in a different way, but definitely you get a sort of a new sense of who these people are. Right. So discussing sort of favorite characters. What would you say that your favourite song or moment is in the musical?
My favourite song?
Yeah.
Well, maybe One Last Time.
One last time.
Very good, yeah.
It was very good belting in that one.
Yes. Well, I mean, so One Last Time was one of the first songs that I heard, because it was also... the cast of Hamilton sung it in front of Obama. And I think it was really interesting that it was Obama's last year, and they were singing this song about George Washington leaving office and it going to the next president in front of Barack Obama, who was, leaving office and sort of transferring over to the next.
They probably did it on purpose.
It probably was planned, yeah. But something else that's really interesting is in the song, they sing, and then Hamilton says the speech that George Washington is making, and George Washington sings the words.
Quietly, yes.
Right.
He starts to go into a fuller voice and finishes it on his own.
Exactly. And I think it's very, there are lots of moments of the relationship between Hamilton and Washington in the play, but I really think that's sort of one of the things that really sums up their relationship, where they're both very close, and sort of Hamilton is the brain and George Washington are the words, right? Is the mouth and the face of everything. And one sort of controls the other. So then spoilers, when George Washington sort of leaves the play, you get sort of Hamilton with no sort of break. And there's no sort of, I mean, he doesn't have a very good time. Let's put it that way.
There's no angel.
No, he is no angel. I mean, I would agree with you that One Last Time is a really great song.
One last time.
I think there are a few which are really good and a few which are really impressive. So there's the Guns and Ships, where there's sort of a rap that in sort of 5 seconds somebody raps sort of 30, 40 words, and it's very impressive. A lot of people say that their favourite song is My Shot.
I am not throwing away my shot.
The sort of the most well-known song, and it's very sort of, well, it's very American.
How so?
Well, I mean, it's all about sort of, I think the sort of the American mentality is very much sort of the American dream is you improve yourself, you grab something with both hands, you go and get it. It also talks about America in very nice words. And so...
Young, Scrappy and Hungry?
Young, Scrappy and Hungry, yeah. I mean, always, if somebody is scrappy and hungry, they're always trying to improve themselves. They're always trying to get better. I think it's really... it's very much sort of the patriotic song in Hamilton. I mean, most of it is patriotic, but I think one of my favourite songs is Burn. So the song when sort of, I mean, without spoiling things, it's where Hamilton's wife, Eliza...
burns paper.
Well, burns paper. I mean, that is, in a nutshell.
You want to be vague?
And if you want to be very vague, it's so she burns the letters that Hamilton writes to her because there's a problem and they have a separation. And I think it's a very powerful song. There are certain lines in it that really, I mean, you were talking about getting emotional after sort of the harmonizing of work. I never thought I would cry after somebody singing "You." But there's a moment in it where sort of she sings "You" 3 times, and it's just
she says it more than once.
Right, and it's just so powerful. Yeah, and I just think that song really is sort of a moment in the play where you don't really expect sort of such a powerful, emotional, raw song after some sort of really fun songs, and then you get this, and it's just fantastic. Obviously, one of the great things about Hamilton, and really about lots of the sort of great movies, is that you pick up more information and more interesting things over time. One of the things that really impacted me when you look at it and you watch it and you think about it is the idea of the main characters being portrayed by people of color. And so the idea that in the 17 and 1800s, those people would have been, even though they were obviously white, they would have been seen in a similar way that we see sort of people of color now, where they are in a disadvantage to Europeans. And it's interesting that the only European or character represented by a European or a white person, is King George, being a character from Europe and with lots of power and lots of privilege and things like that. And so it really sort of makes you think about those sort of the small aspects of the play that are so sort of well thought of. Are there anything that you also picked up after multiple viewings?
Yeah, one thing was during the whole movie, and especially in the opening song, Hamilton is seen as not the opening song, but the second song. He's not gonna he's not going to throw away his shot. Near the end, and Burr, Aaron Burr, he's going to wait for things to happen. But near the end of the musical, they switch roles in that sense. And Burr, he did, I think he said he took after Hamilton in that, that he was going to just go for it instead of waiting. But then Hamilton was the one waiting and more thoughtful than he was in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's sort of the crossing of the two characters that you don't really. I agree with you. You don't really see the first time you watch it, but after a few viewings, you see those sort of nuances, and the fact that the two of them sort of their personalities as they develop, they sort of switch, because obviously, Hamilton doesn't want to throw away his shot, because he will do anything to get sort of the legacy that he wants. Whereas Burr wants to wait for it because he is a legacy that he wants to preserve. And then at the end of the play, Hamilton feels like he's already has that legacy and that he wants now to preserve it. And Burr feels that so many people have sort of gone past him and are better than him, and so he wants to do anything to retain his legacy. Thank you very much for joining us today, Lauren. It was a real sort of fascinating sort of talk about something that we've both seen a great deal, and I suspect that in the course of the rest of the year we'll see even more. So to leave us, I know that you wrote some notes when you were watching it. Would you like to leave us with a few of your notes?
There's 2 pages.
Oh, okay. Probably not. Probably don't read them all.
No, that would make this a lot longer. One of them is something that happened the first time I saw the musical with my mother, and in the opening song when 3 characters don't know who they are yet, but they say, "Me, I loved him." My mother said, "Why are there 3 women? That's illegal."
Yeah, a violent proponent of monogamy, your mother. I wrote down that King George was my favorite character, besides the fact that he was spitting all over me. I mean, we mentioned the spit.
Yeah, we did mention that.
Scarred me for life.
And another note was when during, what song was it? The Room Where It Happens. We're standing on the table with the tablecloth on it, and he jumps, and they pulled the tablecloth from under him. Right. And he doesn't fall.
Is that something that you want to do now?
No, because I will fall.
Honestly, it was something that I also wanted to do, but thankfully I have no tablecloths, so there's no broken tables in my house.
Okay.
Well, thank you again for joining us, Lauren. And I hope all of you at home enjoyed it. I mean, even if you didn't, we enjoyed ourselves, so it doesn't matter.
Nobody watches this far in anyway.
Probably not, but if you do, comment. You can't comment on the Instagram.
The YouTube moderators.
Yeah, no, I tell you what, if you're still watching, comment the word...
you can't comment on Instagram.
On Instagram, comment the word... Lauren, what word? America. Just the word America. And,
or the word country in parentheses.
Yes, or the word country. Yeah, and we'll give you a prize, a secret prize.
We'll follow back.
Probably not. Okay, thank you very much, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Alexander Hamilton.